Hey golfers, welcome back to the Second Swing Thoughts podcast, live every Monday at 9 a.m. We got a fun one today for you. We have a segment with Kevin Kraft. We took your questions, provided them to Kevin, and he gave us an answer on all of those. Plus, we have a segment from the PGA Show with Voshall talking all things JPX One. Plus, we'll go over the equipment that was out on tour this past weekend. So that and a whole lot more on the Second Swing Thoughts podcast here today. Hey golfers, welcome in the studio, Second Swing Thoughts podcast. Today, Harrison Arnold with me, Master Fitter, and we've got a fun one today. He had a couple big events on tour this weekend. Riviera, of course, is one of the most highly touted events on the PGA Tour schedule, so we'll go over that. And we also have a couple of segments that we're going to throw at you as well. We have Kevin Kraft answering your questions that we posed him a few weeks ago, and then of course PGA Show with Voshall. Harrison, it's going to be a good one here today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it was an exciting weekend of golf. I think if you weren't watching the golf yesterday afternoon, then you missed out big time. You know, there was a 7-shot swing, so
right.
And then, talking to Chris, that's going to be interesting to see how the JPX One is.
Yeah, I know you're a Mizuno guy, so we'll get to that. But first, we're going to get into the turn here. Of course, diving into the top news events in the golf world, and we'll start with the Genesis Invitational at Riviera. Jacob Bridgeman, who entered the week as one of the, I guess, hottest players on tour. I think he was kind of sneakily finishing back to back top 20 to start the year. A couple of top fives in there, so you could tell a win was about to happen for him, and he nearly gave it away, but he did end up winning by one shot. What did you see from Jacob Bridgeman? And then we'll talk a couple other big names as well.
Yeah, I think he's a funny winner on tour, because I had a lot of people when I was talking about this tournament of the weekend, they go, "Oh, who is this random person who's on top of the leaderboard?" If anyone who knows golf that pays good enough attention to it, I mean, he finished top 30 on the FedEx Cup last year. He's really good.
Yeah,
he was a great college player. So I was playing college too, so I knew the name. But yeah, it's great to see him actually kind of break through and get over the hump from last week. Last week he had a great opportunity, and the beach kind of got in the way. But other than that, it was cool to see him win.
Yeah, it's funny how the difference in 1 week can make, where last week he was the guy kind of holding up the finish of the tournament with his fiasco on the beach and the penalty strokes and where to drop. And then this week he is, the guy that needs to make a par on 18 to win the tournament. Yeah. He does so a kind of a shaky leg putt there on 18. He had less than 20 feet and then left himself 3.5 feet short. But still to make that putt, kudos to him, kind of applying some pressure on himself and still making it.
That's the worst thing you could possibly do.
Yeah.
I think his interview afterwards was hilarious. He said, I started to get really nervous from 16 onwards, and then I didn't feel my hands for any putt I hit after that, and that's whence I left both of them way short.
Yeah, I believe it.
So relatable.
He looked a little nervous, but hey, if you build a 6 or 7 shot lead, during that final round, I think you kind of earn the right to maybe, get up and coast, if you will. So let's another couple things we'll talk about. Rory McIlroy finishing strong at the very end, but just not quite enough. I think there's probably a few putts he wished he could have back, especially on Sunday. He missed a few short ones in there. But and then of course Scotty Scheffler's top 10 streak ends. It looked like he may claw back into the top 10. As of the finishing putt for him on Sunday, he was tied for 8th, but ended up falling back to I think 12th in the leaderboard. So Scotty Scheffler's streak, the top 12 streak stays alive, but
yeah, it's still impressive, right? There's two ways to look at that. I think you can look at it in the sense of he broke that top 10 streak, but for him to start as poorly as he did again this week and still do that, so impressive. Yeah. Especially for how many low-scoring events have happened in the last three weeks. All of those have been double. Nearly 20 unders, nearly won at all 3 of these events, and he still managed to claw into the tournament after shooting over par. That's crazy golf. Yeah, so
Scheffler, once he figures out those Thursdays, he's going to be back to his winning form, and I think he'll be right there. So I will note, golfers, if you're watching, pose us some questions. We'll have a session, a kind of a live Q&A session with Harrison here later on in the program. We also have one with Kevin Kraft where this was a pre-recorded segment with Kevin, but he answered a bunch of questions, and a lot of those questions apply to all kinds of golfers, so stay tuned for that. One other piece from Riviera that we want to talk about was Tiger Woods mentioned that he is not ruling out playing at Augusta for the Masters this year. Couple of times he was asked in the sort of the pre-event press conference, and then a similar thing came up with Jim Nantz in the booth during the CBS broadcast, just kind of saying that, he didn't deny the fact that he's maybe looking at Augusta to play it this year. What do you think about that? Obviously, Tiger Woods is kind of the needle in golf.
Yeah, anytime he says he's going to play, I take it with a pinch of salt because it could turn around the next week and see a little graphic on his Instagram saying he's got another surgery. So I'm excited if he does play, and if he does, I've got my mock neck ready to wear for that week. Yeah. So if he does play, we're all going to love it. But we'll see we'll give it a few more weeks.
Yeah, Tiger, of course, if he does play, all eyes are going to be on him, and I am wondering as well, with him now being 50 years old, if he's going to, if he's going to use the PGA Tour Champions at all to kind of get himself prepped or primed for all these majors he's still eligible for. Obviously, that would be an interesting one to pay attention to, and suddenly the PGA Tour Champions would go to the top of my viewing list of tournaments to watch, I imagine. Another one here from the weekend, it was the Honda LPGA Thailand over the weekend. Gino Tidakun wins in her home country, which is that's always kind of fun. The third player, I believe, from Thailand to win that event. World number one player, plays mainly Callaway in her bag, but I think solidifying herself, because kind of that number one ranking in the women's game has been a little bit fluid the last few years. So she kind of solidifies herself as the top women's player right now.
Yeah, she's not really faltered at all in the last, I want to say 7 months, I think, 6 or 7 months she's been there or thereabouts. And I remember we did a little recap on her at the back end of last year and went through her bag, and all Callaway bag, set up for a pretty low spin. So I think, she's just doing her thing. She's on a Scotty Scheffler run just in the women's game.
Yeah, she's doing some really impressive stuff. And I saw as well, kind of a fun fact was this is the first Callaway Quantum driver win for a player on staff with Callaway.
Really?
So far, there's been several wins of players not on staff.
Yeah.
But she's the first one of players on staff with Callaway to win with Callaway Quantum. Of course, we talked about Anthony Kim last week winning with a Quantum driver. One other piece we're going to talk about here as well before diving into Jacob Bridgman's bag. We have a fun video today coming on the YouTube channel with Ben Warian, pro golfer. He went through a fitting with Larry Bobka for a 7-wood. You're going to want to check that out. Of course, 7-woods being all the rage these days. And Ben is a player who didn't have one prior, and he actually says in the video he had never hit a 7-wood before. But he kind of sees quickly the benefits of it. He doesn't lose distance. He gets a lot higher launch. So, of course, stay tuned for that and exactly how that fitting goes. And then, of course, one more time, if you're tuning in, drop some questions, some comments in the YouTube chat right now. We'll get to those later on in the show. But let's dive into our winning What's in the Bag segment here. This was Jacob Bridgman. We're going to dive into the equipment used by Jacob. Of course, TaylorMade guy through and through. So we'll dive into that. And his putter specifically is that TaylorMade Spider's on a run here. But let's dive into the bag. What I'm going to ask you about right away here is TaylorMade QI35 LS driver that Jacob's using. Typically, QI35 wasn't the super successful driver line from TaylorMade that we've seen before. A lot of guys opting to stay with QI10, the previous generation. But QI35 LS gets a win here.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean it was a bad driver just because McIlroy and Scheffler and any of the other guys didn't play it. I think, this is why it's important to get fit to figure out what works for you. Not just because the best players in the world and there's a trend going the other way doesn't mean it doesn't work for people. Because the QI35 was still in play for a lot of golfers last year. Just we only ever hear about Scheffler and McIlroy and the like not playing it. So, but it was a great driver. He's got it's the hazardous green, but anyone in the business knows it's the Hulk shaft, because it's got that bright green.
Yep.
So that thing is just a crazy low spin driver. It's made for very fast, aggressive transition players. That Hulk shaft is extremely stout. So you better be able to move that club fast in transition. Otherwise, you're gonna have no idea where that club is. But that thing is a absolute monster.
Yeah, and he does have QI4D in the fairway woods. He plays the kind of higher lofted or HL 3-wood at 16.5, and then he plays a 7-wood at 21 degrees, which may have been his most valuable club over the weekend, because he hit on Saturday during his really impressive 64, where he kind of started to run away from the field on the par 3 on the front 9 that was playing like 265 or something like that. It was the longest par 3 the par 3 I'd played that week. Took a 7-iron, hit it to tap-in range essentially, and then did the same thing again on the par 5 11th with the 7-wood, hit it to tap-in range for an eagle. And obviously now looking back, without those shots, probably doesn't win the tournament. So another guy seeing benefits of playing that 7-wood. He's got his with a graphite design Tour AD XC8X shaft. And then I also wanted to call out, you mentioned this before we started recording, was his utility iron. So he's playing a 4-iron, the TP, the Tour Preferred UDI. This is an older model from several years ago. What do you know about this one, since it is kind of, I think we're talking about like a decade old here?
Yeah, I mean, that thing came out when I was I want to say I was like 14, 15 when that thing came out. So I remember that was all the rage when I was like, oh, I would see that in pictures and be like, oh, that looks good. Huh? But that in particular, though, that UDI compared to, so that was the driving iron at the time. Compare it to the driving irons of today. That UDI is way thinner, has a much cleaner looking top line. It can fit into an iron set a little bit more. It's a bit more players orientated in the physical appearance of it. And it's interesting to kind of see how he's built that setup, because he was using that as a 4-iron. So, he's definitely using it to retain a lot more ball speed. So there must have been some distance. He has some distance gaps in his bag where he needs a little bit more ball speed, needs a little bit more launch. 4 and 5 iron are those two gaps, because he then moves into a P770, which is, again, that's not uncommon. You see a lot of tour players doing that. So really, I think he's just optimizing his bag not only for his distance gaps, but also for trajectories. He must like a much lower ball flight with that 4-iron. That's why he's gone for a UDI driving iron, because that thing is going to launch a lot lower. Then that 770 is there more so as a higher launching, more forgiving option, retain more ball speed. I think it's very interesting. If you look through, so he's been kind of that poster child for TaylorMade for a little while now. And if you want to learn a little bit more about his game, go find Corey Johnson on Instagram. He's a TaylorMade rep on tour. He's like the college rep and tour rep. He has a lot of stuff with Jacob Bridgeman on there, and kind of see how that bag's evolved over the years. And he's always been kind of that first person to kind of move into anything. R7 quad comes out, you see it straight away. You see this kind of stuff. So it's interesting to see he's still got a very old piece of TaylorMade material in there, because just because it's new doesn't mean it's going to work.
Right, yeah. I mean, that is a smooth transition set that he has with the combos there, going into then the P770, which has a little bit more of that kind of hollow body build, if you will, but still in a player's shape. And then down the P7 CBs from his 6-3 pitching wedge. He's got a set of MG5 wedges. Nothing super special, I guess, or unique in the grinds there. But then we do have to talk about TaylorMade Spider Tour. That is now, of the 6 events on tour this year, that is 5 that have gamed a TaylorMade Spider Tour. And not all of them are on TaylorMade staff. I think actually most of them are not. So just what have you, in terms of fittings as well, what have you seen from the TaylorMade Spider putter family? I mean, it seems like it's kind of, it's the new trend right now on tour anyway, is guys moving into one of those and winning.
Well, we've had this conversation every week for the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think. Is anyone transitioning from a blade to a mallet, they go to a Spider. It feels the most stable and has the most feel like a blade does. This week's actually weird, because everyone's been winning with the Spider Tour X. This was a Spider Tour S that has the extra weight ports in the back, a little more itsy bitsy Spider kind of homage there. But interestingly, with he's got a different sight line to what you'd usually see. He's just got a 1 dot. Everyone else, we've seen it have these long lines, different line pieces. We always talk about line piece and how that can affect how you aim the putter. He just has a dot. To me, that usually notifies that someone is just much more of a feel putter. They're not trying to match line with line. A lot of people like to match line on line to get them all set up correctly. He just has a dot. So he's keeping it as very simple. Let's just feel this thing out. And I saw a great piece last night, and 2 out of the top 25 players in the world are not using a mallet. That's crazy.
It's a trend, and I think Ludwig Oberg is one of the few guys left still using a blade. He tested a mallet this week, but I don't think he put it in play. No. But nonetheless, that trend is certainly becoming prominent.
Well, I wouldn't even call it a trend anymore. I think it just makes the most sense. All research suggests that you're going to have way more forgiveness in a mallet putter from a speed point of view. So why would you not at least give it a go?
Right, at least give it a go.
Yeah.
It's true. All these spiders are winning on tour. It's crazy to see that trend, and we talked about it last fall at the Ryder Cup. I think it was something like 21 or 22 of the 24 players were in a mallet. So there's a couple of unique clubs that were in play that we're going to highlight really quickly here, and then we'll get to our segment with Kevin Kraft, kind of a fitting Q&A there. So Ping G410 was in play this week. A 3-wood for Matt McCarty, the lefty, of course. You haven't seen a lot of G410. I feel like that was kind of the line that maybe got a little lost with Ping the last decade, but it was the first to introduce what they now have as their Trajectory Tuning 2.0 hosel. So from there, they've been using this hosel, and then you've been using it in fittings every day.
Yeah, I think it's just it was a stepping stone. I think it doesn't mean it wasn't a great lineup of woods. It was very loud, from what I remember. I think it being extremely loud. But yeah, I think mainly it's just that it was a real good transition between 400, which was fantastic, and then 425, which had so much success. But yeah, if it works, it works. Keep it in the bag.
Tom Kim played a GT1 4 hybrid. So, and this is one that kind of, it's one of those things that led to the GT1 3 Tour model 3-wood being released last year. Was a lot of players actually liked the fairway wood and hybrid of the GT1 variety, which was originally designed for moderate swing speed players, but I think a lot of tour players picked it up and started using it. And so Tom Kim playing one, and the way he's got it built is kind of like a 7-wood, where it's a 20-degree club. And it has a little bit of a larger footprint, so it's almost like a small fairway wood, but built at 20 degrees.
Essentially, it's a Callaway UW just in a GT1. That's
a great way to kind of equate the two there. And then lastly, we're going to give a shout out to Tony Finau. Tony Finau is playing the original Blueprint irons, been playing these for a long time. If you are not familiar with these, so Ping had their Blueprint iron revamp a couple years ago with the S and the T models, but before that, was the Blueprint Muscleback blade iron from I think 2019 maybe was when it was launched, or 2018.
19. Yeah,
it's been a while, and they are, I think, still the smallest muscleback iron that, at least in recent memory, I can remember being launched. It is.
I'm just glad someone can use them. I use them and it ruined my iron game, so I'm just glad someone is making good use of those irons. But great to look at.
Yeah. So nonetheless, those are, that's just a quick look. We have a little bit more of those in detail. We have a blog up on the secondswing.com website, so you can check those out. But now I think we will transition to our segment with Kevin Kraft. He was in studio several weeks ago testing the latest equipment, the new stuff out that's being launched in 2026. And we also had him take some fitting questions from you guys, the audience. And this covers a wide range of topics here. So without further ado, we'll get to Kevin Kraft answering your fitting questions here. We now welcome on the Second Swing of Thoughts podcast. It is the man himself. Kevin Kraft is here, the master club fitter at our Columbia store. If you've watched our YouTube channel the last couple of years, you've seen a lot of Kevin. And
sorry about that, folks.
It's always great to have Kevin on. And so one of the things we did, if you follow us on social media, was we asked for some questions from all of you. Some listener and viewer submitted questions on fitting. And so we're going to start with that. We're going to dive right in. This could get long, but because there's a lot of questions that were submitted, so we'll try to get into these. But
I got nothing else to do.
We're going to start actually outside of the United States here.
Oh.
So we got one. This is from David McClelland, 62.
Okay.
I'm from Sydney, Australia.
Oh, beautiful.
First off, can I say Kevin is an absolute legend. Says I'm 54 with a 16 handicap. I'm currently gaming Cobra King Tech same length iron 6 to lob wedge with KBS 85-gram graphite shafts. I love them. I would like to hear Kevin's thoughts on single length. He also is asking when your next What's in the Bag will be available to watch, which I know you're still working on things for 2026, so maybe that's TBD.
Once all that gets finalized, then we'll go deep dive into that one, because there's if everything goes to plan, there'll be a lot changing in 26. All right, so my take on single length. I definitely think there's a place in golf for the single length, and the concept of it to me makes sense, right? Same position every time, every club. Simplicity is a wonderful thing considering how complex the golf swing is.
Yep.
There are some challenges though. So if you take a 4-iron and make it 6 or 7-iron length, that golf club's going to be easier to hit. Okay, because it's shorter. The shorter the club, technically, the easier it should be to hit. The problem is when we get into wedges, and if inherently a 4-iron is easier to hit at 7-iron length than a sand wedge at 7-iron length should be harder to hit. That's my only concern. And if you look at Bryson's he's managed it well, but I would say probably the weakest part of his game has been wedges.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is due to length. For me, when I get somebody coming in and they're, talking about potentially going one length, I throw out the idea of, okay, let's take the best part of what this is and go, whatever that starting club is, 4-iron, 5-iron, whatever, and make to the 7-iron be all the same length, and then go traditional the rest of the way down, so that we don't get into that situation where, the wedges become harder to work with. And we get a decent amount of turnover in one length, and the ones that I've done that were a modified one length set haven't come back.
Okay.
So, if somebody comes in and they want one length, by golly, they're going to get one length. I am not going to stand in anybody's way.
Right.
But just from, a number of years of working with this stuff, that seems to be the thing that unlocks the ease of what that is.
Piece that, David did say that he's playing through the lob wedge.
Yeah.
So that would be, to your point, a bit more of a concern maybe on that end. But that's a good point. I haven't thought about doing the long irons, in the single length concept and then going back to traditional.
Yeah.
So
there's always some extra work there because trying to get the gapping and everything right. When you're talking about a golf club that's the same length, you're not going to inherently pick up speed between irons like you would with a longer handle. So then you have to make sure that you've got the lofts, dealt right. So you get those gaps. So, for him, I would say, if it's working for you, awesome. Take a look and see where you are in your wedges and whether they are an asset or a liability, or if they're not an asset and not a liability, could they be better? Right. And that might be something to look into.
Next question here. This is from Luke Mock. I might be mispronouncing that. Sorry, Luke. As a Cobra guy, what are one or two other brands that always make your eyes wander a bit in terms of clubs?
All of them.
I would say this year, having filmed with you, Mizuno is doing that.
Oh, they're so beautiful. Yeah.
And then I just watched you hit TaylorMade for QI4D, really, really good.
Yeah, really.
And a video coming soon.
So I stand there with people all day long, and I see kind of what the trends are in terms of how these clubs perform, and from a ball speed perspective, it's really hard to beat Titleist.
Yeah.
So you look at, we saw it some today doing some testing. I was all over that face, and it was 149, 150. And, my numbers were great with the TaylorMade, but I was 147. So, it's Titleist just produces insane fast ball speeds off the driver, no matter where you hit it. Callaway with their fairway woods. Strixon with their irons.
Right.
Ping with our irons. Let's not even talk about putters or wedges for that matter.
Yeah, we better not.
I like them all.
We could be here for
the
entire rest of this episode. So
I love the Cobra stuff. I'm totally dedicated to it.
Yeah.
But I like it. I look at it all, and for the most part, I like it all. There's certain things I don't necessarily connect with, but I like way too much of it.
Yeah, that's if you've watched Kevin on the channel or listened to him, that part's very true. Let's get into some more. So we had a couple that were comments on the post. These are now DM submitted ones.
Okay.
Let's start. This is an interesting topic here. It's something that we've had various fitters on and addressed this exact question.
Okay.
It says a lot of fittings start. This is from Mr. Z Wiggles. I think that might also be a mispronunciation, but a lot of fittings start with shaft and then club head. Is it not possible to fit a head to the shaft?
Okay, so
loaded, big kind of question of just general fitting philosophy here. I think.
Yeah. At second swing, we start with head first,
yep,
and go through shaft. In general, from my personal experience, I find that with driver, it is much harder to say, okay, I love this shaft and I should be able to put it in any head and have it work exactly the same. I don't find that to be the case.
Okay.
I think with drivers, it's especially important to get the head that you like the feel of first, and then try multiple shafts to figure out exactly which direction you want to go. I have not had a great history of being able to take X shaft and put it in Y head and just expect that it's going to perform properly.
Have you had, a scenario where someone comes in for a driver fitting, and it says, I love everything about this shaft that I'm playing, but I needed an upgraded driver head. So that's kind of what you're referring to. And you've just had struggles with that is it because maybe the player then puts a different driver head on their gamer shaft and it feels different, performs different than they expect?
Just the head shaft combination, right? That's ultimately what we're going for, and when we're looking at things like smash factor, right? Smash factor can be an indicator of how well a ball has been struck, but it can also be an indicator of how well a head shaft combination works together, whether it's driver or whether it's irons. So to me, in the driver specifically, I'm very happy with the way we do our fittings, because I feel like that's the most efficient way to get to the right result. When we're talking about irons, as long as you're staying within one particular category, game improvement club, player distance iron, player cavity or player blade, whatever, you can pretty much take any shaft that works in one head and put it in another and expect that it's going to work out well.
Okay.
I've had plenty of experience with one particular shaft through multiple different heads. Changing categories, however, can raise some problems.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the construction of the head gets very different.
Absolutely.
Weight can get very different. Yep. So that makes sense, though,
Yeah,
I feel
so
like.
You go out from, okay, if we're doing game improvement, all these clubs are designed to do basically the same thing. Well, that shaft should work across that segment. But the way a player's blade is going to work compared to a game improvement club, pretty different.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yes, it's possible. It can be done. But for me, I feel like in the woods, it's better to go head first and then shaft. Yeah. And then irons, it could probably go either way.
Yeah. Like if someone's a lifetime, for example, X100 player.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got the speed and that's what they're comfortable with. They've been playing it forever.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had players like that before.
Yeah, I'm one of them. I played R300s in high school, S300s in college, and X100s as a touring pro. I played professionally for 14 years. I used the X100 in every single set of irons I had in that entire time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see it on tour too, guys that don't, they upgrade their club head model, but stay in the same shaft. Yep. So, that's an important one because I think there's a lot of questions about that, and we've had posts or things go viral of other fitters saying the same thing as you are, but then you get kind of people are like, well, the shaft is the engine of the club, and the shaft's the more important part, and there are different philosophies out there, but I think your point stands as far as your anecdotal feedback just from doing it yourself and seeing that result. So here's a good one. This is from G Gallardo 823. Says, why can I hit my 3 hybrid 220 and my driver 245 if I get lucky? So this is interesting because those gaps, you feel like there should be a wider gap in terms of, especially if he says 245 if I get lucky. So maybe what would you expect it could be the issue being the root of this here? So
the first thing I'm going to say is you are not alone. Okay, you are in fine company because there are a lot of people like this. So in general, I'm going to look at a couple of different things when we're struggling with driver. One of them will be angle of attack, okay, which is going to potentially lead to, If you have a negative angle of attack, we're typically going to see some higher spin.
Yep.
Okay. So that works against you. We're going to look at launch, right? So we got to create enough trajectory for that ball to stay in the air, and we got to look at impact locations. Because if you're catching a ball out of the heel, you are going to give up a lot, especially low heel. You're going to give up a lot of ball speed. You're going to see a lot of spin. Mm-hmm. So most people tend to be more efficient with shorter golf clubs, right? If I see somebody who's super efficient, hyper efficient is what I like to call it when I see a 144, 145 smash factor on an iron, right? And I know that they're crushing their irons and getting everything they can out of them, but they struggle with driver. That iron swing could be working into the driver swing, right? As much as I like to think that, the swing changes from irons into fairway woods into driver, are primarily space between hands and body and ball position so that the club becomes more, more arced around, and more shallow. It doesn't always work that way for everybody. And I experienced it this summer. I took a lesson, first one I had in a while, and I just ground out on my irons for about a month. And all of a sudden I couldn't hit my driver anymore. And it was because I totally neglected the driver, and I was, including my iron swing in the driver swing. So there are some subtle differences there. So, watch your impact location. Let's make sure that's good. Okay. Center of the golf club to slightly high toe will be good. Let's watch the launch. Make sure we're not launching it too high or too low. And then let's take a look at that angle of attack.
Yeah. I think the theory that I have for this person is probably somebody that, plays a fade and hits down on it. And that's where you get some extra spin. And maybe there's also, this kind of gets more into the instruction side of things, but also making sure that the ball position is moved accordingly.
Absolutely.
Their setup is according, and to your point about if the ball's farther out away from you, in general, that should, increase your angle of attack. Yeah. And if the ball's in the, off your front foot, right? So there are those little things too that I know it's not necessarily part of every fitting, but sometimes if you guys see something, especially you as a really, really good player and a teacher, you can do that as well.
I'm glad you brought up the setup thing, because there was somebody this morning that I had to tell him that his ball was too far forward in his
I wonder who that was.
With the driver.
It was me. My ball was too far forward in my stance.
It was.
So, but thank you for helping me with
that.
Yeah,
sure.
So, here's another one. This is a good one. Getting into some of the new stuff for 2026. I'm a left-handed player, been playing Mizuno S3 5-3 pitching wedge, but slowing down a little bit. Worth getting fit for Mizuno M13. Asking if it is. This is the Sean McCowd.
Okay.
I'm mispronouncing, I feel like, every one of these, but shout out to Sean for the question.
Yeah. Good stuff. So, why not take a look? Let's
at least
see.
Test it out.
Yeah. Look, the S3 is pretty much a pure control club, right? There's not a whole lot of explosiveness in terms of ball speed there.
Yeah.
At least it's not designed to be. Anybody that swings really hard and it's really solid could make it so, but that 13,
A little bit of pop to it.
Definitely has some pop to it. And as long as we're continuing to create good, height and spin and landing angle numbers, there should be some more distance in there for you, for sure.
Yeah. I wonder too if there's, depending on on Sean's, other distances and going up into the long irons, maybe it's a combo of M15 and M13 that, obviously you have to work to configure the lofts so that they match up, but there's that possibility as well. And I think they look the part where you could blend them and it wouldn't look too starkly different, at least at address.
Yeah.
Transitioning from the M13 to the M15 there.
Yeah. I like the idea of just at least check it out. See, how much distance you're looking to gain. Mm-hmm. And as long as the numbers are good, we always want to make sure you're getting good numbers. If you want distance, that's fine, but we got to make sure it's good distance,
Right.
not distance that causes you to hit it over the backs of greens.
This one's from Nathan Geving. I feel good about that pronunciation.
Okay, good. Nice.
Nathan Geving saying truly, so he's trying to get to the bottom of this. Truly, how much different is the launch between Ventus Red Plus, I assume meaning Velocore Plus, and Ventus Blue Velocore Plus?
Well, that is a very hard question to answer, to be honest, because everybody loads things differently, right? So if you're, it's just one of those things where, all right, the Ventus Red or the TR Red or the Plus Red is designed as a higher launching shaft. Does it mean it's going to be? Not necessarily.
For most players?
For most players, yes. So we have to present things as, this is what this is designed to do. Let's see if it does it for you.
Yep.
Right? There are those who, struggle to get a ball in the air, and you would think a red would be perfect, and the way they load and unload the black actually gives them better launch numbers. And it's just weird, right? Because that's exactly the opposite of what you would expect. But this is golf, folks, and there's a lot of opposites in this game.
How many billion people are in the world now? 8 point something billion people. There are that many golf swings. And so that was, maybe I'm going a little too far out there with my analogy right now. But the point is, every golf swing is different. Yep. And I think if we go to absolutes on these, especially shaft characteristics and launch, you can maybe make that mistake. Yeah. And so most likely, the red will launch higher just because of how it's built, where the most flexible part of the shaft is versus the blue. But it does depend on your swing. If you are creating a ton of lag, that can be very different than the Ernie Els, who is just very smooth tempo, doesn't generate a lot of lag, versus the Sergio Garcia, who, his hands are down below the belt and his club head's still behind his head, right? So that all factors in, and I'm sure those two guys throughout their career are playing opposite shaft profiles, probably.
And this is exactly why, we always want everybody to get fit, because we could go buy a shaft and it could perform the exact opposite way that we want it to, and then we're out a bunch of money based on the fact that we tried something and it didn't work. So just getting a feel for it and getting a sense of what those two shafts are going to do, or however many shafts you want to try out. That's the best way to do it, because everybody's well, like I say, individual results may vary. Yeah.
You said that a few times in content, and it's true. It's true. So what we're gonna do, because we have a lot of these to go through, and we're getting up to that kind of 30-minute mark, we're gonna split this into 2 parts. Okay. So this is gonna be the last question of part 1, and then we'll have another podcast episode that will answer more of these. If you submitted one, we will get to it. But I wanted to get you one more here for this particular segment, and we're gonna go with, this is XYK Listen, and I might be mispronouncing that as well, but that person submitted this question. If you could only do a fitting for one club in the bag, which one would it be?
Oof. Wow, that is a great question. You get a star for that. That's a really good question. We could go on probably for hours on this one.
Let's do it. I mean, I think we got 5+ minutes here.
Okay. I suppose it would probably have to depend on the individual. I can see a case being made for driver, because that sets everything up. And I don't know if you've noticed, but golf is a whole lot easier when you don't have things like trees and
penalty
bunkers
shots
and penalty shots in the way, right? So there's definitely a case to be made there. I would say probably we could skip over fairway wood and hybrid as being like the most important ones. When we look at the majority of our golf bag, though, the majority of our golf bag is going to be made up of our irons. And so, getting that right, you're going to cover more of the bag. Yeah. There's probably even a case to be made for wedges, considering if you're like super steep and you're trying to hit a wedge with 4 degrees of bounce, I mean,
you're probably
it can be problematic.
Chunking a lot of those shots.
Yeah, it can definitely be problematic. So there could even be a case to be made for that. I'm not sure I'm going to go putter though, because
see, that's an interesting thought. I know Larry Bobka would say putter here, and he would say that
probably
because, and I say Larry because he's very adamant about this, and he's been on the podcast enough, and you use your putter on every hole unless you chip in.
So,
but
here's my counter to that.
Yeah, and I would love to.
In 2021 at the U.S. Senior Open, I was using a heel shafted putter, Bobby Grace Ollie, that I did not realize had negative 2.5 degrees of loft to it.
Hold on. You said negative, like as in...
Yeah.
So you set that down, and the face was actually pointing to the ground.
That is correct. And I putted so well with that putter.
So were you just swinging way up on the ball? So you had to have been, right?
I am somebody who... You ever worked with somebody that flips in an iron swing? Right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Adding loft to the club. That's what I do with putters.
Okay.
I'm somebody that adds loft to a putter.
Interesting.
So it actually made my launch conditions pretty good, and the greens were so fast.
Yeah.
Right. That it was like putting on glass. So if I wasn't, if my numbers were a little bit off, it wasn't going to hurt me much. So, but I didn't know it was 2.5 in the negative until much later on when I actually put it on the loft lie machine. I was like, oh. Interesting. I went running to David Coe. I'm like, hey man, we got a problem.
Right.
And that putter was great, but I am now somebody who really struggles with toe hang. And back then I didn't. So, I still use a zero lofted putter. When I build out a new putter, it's zero loft. And I did back-to-back putter fittings a few weeks back, and the first guy was like me, and he ended up in a zero loft putter. And my next guy came in and was at 6, right? Because everybody, the one guy, dragging those hands forward with the club de-lofted, and the other guy was like me, adding some loft. So, so that's my counterpoint to how you can kind of get away with stuff with putter. Not that you shouldn't get fit for putters. You absolutely should, because if you're the guy that that adds a lot of loft,
and you're already playing maybe your putter's 4 degrees.
Yeah, so you're getting there at like 8 or 9 degrees of loft. That ball's launching in the air, probably creating backspin, which we do not want with a putter. And so definitely get fit for putters. But would it be, if I could only do one club, would it be the club that I choose?
Yeah,
probably not.
I think it also depends on if the player doesn't have a ton of speed, or and they when they go out and play golf at their club or their course, they hit driver 14 times, which means every par 4 and par 5 for the most part.
Yep.
Getting a driver that you can trust on every one of those to put you in play, put you in the fairway, to me seems like a really big stroke saver.
It kind of does.
I would lean that way on this question. It's kind of a unique question, but
it is. It's a very cool question, because it really makes you kind of dig deep into what matters in your bag,
right?
And what is going to most positively affect your game.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously player dependent, and it seems like a common answer for everything we do. But
I mean, I suppose maybe if we were going to do this, somebody came in and said, I want a full bag, but I only want to get fit for one golf club. I guess the question would have to be, what's the worst part of your game?
Yeah.
Where can I make the biggest improvement to what you do?
So the easy answer for the fitters is the weakest point of your game.
Yeah.
You'll address that. Yeah. But on an overarching scale, or for the general masses, maybe we're thinking driver to start, just because then that sets the tone for everything else.
Kind of does.
All right. Well, that was a good little Q&A. Yeah. We have part 2 coming, but in the meantime, Kevin, the viewers and listeners are thankful, and I'm also thankful for your presence here and your insights and your knowledge for this segment.
Super happy to be here.
And that was Kevin Kraft talking, and answering some questions. Of course, when we have Kevin in, we always appreciate it. And that covered a wide range of golfers there. But now we can get into another fun conversation, another guy that brings a lot of energy to the table here. Yeah. This was Chris Voshall. We were at the PGA Show in the Mizuno booth, which was also brought a lot of energy, a lot of vibes, and some background noise and music there. But it's an exciting year for Mizuno, so let's get to Chris Voshall talking at Mizuno JPX One products. Hey golfers, I'm Drew Maholder, Second Swing Golf. That is Chris Voshall, Director of Golf for Mizuno, and it's a very exciting time of year, Chris. New product, and specifically for Mizuno, a whole new set of woods to talk about.
Absolutely.
So JPX One, very exciting.
This is something we've been so excited to bring out to everybody and the fitters for years. In the process of the last 4 years, we've been looking at materials to see how we can change the dynamic of a club impact. What I mean by that, why that's important, the whole industry is working out of the same cookbook with a titanium face or a carbon face hitting a urethane ball, and we kind of know what's going to happen when those two things collide. We sought out a material that would make that collision different, and that's where this nano alloy face comes from. So the JPX One on drivers, they feature the world's first nano alloy face, and what this material does is dynamically, it actually becomes more elastic as it gets impacted. What I mean by that, it's super hard now, but when a ball hits it, it becomes elastic, and what that means is it's going to actually take some of the compression that would be on your golf ball and make your ball play higher compression. I like to say we're exchanging compression for propulsion. Propulsion is a powerful thing forward, compression is an energy loss. So with that, we expect to see great ball speeds and really consistent ball speeds across the face.
Yeah, that is a really, first of all, it also looks awesome.
Right?
I really appreciate what Mizuno's done with the look of it, to have it kind of catches your attention, but then at address, it has that really clean look on the crown. Now talk to me about the difference in the two models here. So there's the JPX One that you're holding.
Yep.
I've got JPX One Select here. Both have the same face technology, both have nano alloy, but what are the differences between the two here?
Yeah, I'd say the tech package is identical between them. They're both 460 cc's, and then it comes down to how did we use those 460. On the JPX One, this is more about forgiveness and straight line distance. It's a little bit shallower from top to bottom, a little bit longer from toe to heel, longer from front to back, which means MOI is going to be higher, it's going to be more of a straight line shot. On the JPX One Select, we made that face a little bit deeper. When you deepen the face, you can lower the center of gravity, you can pull that CG forward, you can make it a little bit more workable and lower spinning model. So if anything, I'd say this tends to be the better player one, but again, it's all about the fit.
Right, exactly. And in terms of feel now, I think a lot of golfers are going to see this new face material, new face technology. You talked about the elasticity of it. And from the feel perspective, how does it feel, and what should golfers expect from that perspective when they try this one out versus others that you mentioned out there?
That might be the thing that shocks people the most, because it looks like a material that's going to sound soft and sound muted, but actually behind this nano alloy, there's titanium. So behind it, it's actually more of a piercing sound than it is a muted sound. So again, composite faces have that muted sound, and with how much composite's used on a lot of golf clubs now, a lot of them sound really quiet. This has that explosive, piercing sound to it, so it'll shock some people and it'll hit the ball a long way.
Yeah, and I mean, look, the initial early testing with this thing has been really, really good reviews. A lot of ball speed packed in there. Of course, Mizuno drivers have been really stable as well for a long time.
For sure, and I know on your testing, that was one of the big things that popped up, was how consistent the ball speeds were across the face and how straight it hits. And again, nano alloy unlocked some stuff behind the face for us to get more optimal in where we place that weight and make sure it's placed to make sure it's ultimate forgiveness and consistency of ball speed.
Yeah, I think really well done, at least. I mean, it's a really good package, and we've seen the performance, really good early returns with JPX One drivers. Let's dive into the fairway woods here. So JPX One, and extending the nomenclature, I guess. JPX One down into the fairway wood. So talk to me about this one here and what golfers are going to expect, or should expect out of these.
So it's funny, when you see a family of woods, and we got such a new technology and a new material here, you'd think the natural thing would be just throw that nano alloy on the driver or on the fairway in the hybrid. But for nano alloy to do what it needs to do, you need surface area. And fairways and hybrids are naturally a much smaller face. So with that, we focused on a more critical area of those two designs, which is that lower portion of the face. These are tended to be hit off the ground in lower impacts. So it's important that we address that area to really optimize ball speed, make sure it doesn't drop off low on the face. And that's where our Cortec chamber is a great technology. It's a TPU material with a stainless steel weight embedded in it that actually this goes through the head all the way inside. So it gives the ability for the bottom portion of the face to really flex to give you super consistent ball speeds.
Yeah, and you see that especially, again, that low face area of these clubs specifically seems to be a common mishit location, I guess, for a lot of golfers. So clearly addressing that and helping golfers, if they hit it a groove or two low, retain that ball speed is very impactful. I'm sure you saw that in kind of just the research and developing the product as well.
Absolutely. And with that, again, I talked about fitting. I know you talk about fitting. It's all about that. And we've really leaned into the ability to make sure you've got so many options in these. Both the fairways and the hybrids feature the quick switch adapter, so you can adjust lie angle, you can adjust loft, you can hit those tweener lofts. And we've added some SKUs too on the fairway wood side, where we've got a 2 or 3 wood, which is a little bit lower spin, and then a standard 3, 5, 7, and the addition of a 9 wood as well.
So talk to me about that tour model as well,
Yeah.
because I think that was one I'm actually just curious about. You see they're both the same loft, right?
Yep.
But they're built a little bit differently, and you're kind of a 3 tour and a 3 wood. So
Correct.
Talk to me about the differences there, and what, if someone is maybe a higher speed player, why they should maybe think about that 3 tour model.
Absolutely. The 3T is really designed to be that more penetrating one, and you nailed it, for a higher speed player who doesn't need the spin and the deep CG of a standard fairway wood. So it's designed to have the mass focus a little bit closer to the face. It's designed to be a little bit smaller, more compact. So not really about forgiveness and more about distance for that one.
And just in general, as we kind of wrap up here with JPX One, the long game, right? I think, it's no secret Mizuno has absolutely dominated in the iron department for a long time. This seems like a kind of a splash you guys are making in sort of the metalwood department. Why should golfers give it a try?
It's one of those things where, to me, the best thing about it is that it's different. The whole approach, the concept of the design is thinking about the design and how a face interaction and how that collision happens different than everybody else. It's a new material that unlocks something that nobody else is really doing. So with that, again, people don't necessarily think of Mizuno on woods, but I think this is the one that'll actually change that notion.
Yeah.
Once you hit it, the performance gains are undeniable.
Yeah, I think you got to try it for yourself. Those drivers look awesome with that blue face, but of course, fairway woods and hybrids are also really good and can add to your game. So schedule a fitting with one of our fitters. Put JPX One in the mix, and I think you'll be rewarded with some good performance. Chris, thank you so much for the time here.
Appreciate it.
And that was Chris Voshall at the PGA Show talking JPX One. Mm-hmm. There's a loud environment there. I felt like I was talking pretty loud. And then we were also, day after the demo day, got some sun. But now we're back in studio, and we're back in Minnesota where it's really cold. So it's kind of fun to get a sunburn down there, come up here, and then it just kind of, you stay out of the sun for another few months.
It's like a natural aloe vera.
Exactly. JPX One. I know you're a big Mizuno guy, Harrison.
Yeah,
so
good.
talk to me about what you've seen from JPX One so far
Yeah.
in fittings, and then we'll get to some of these questions that we've got in the YouTube chat here.
Well, Mizuno have made a fantastic line of drivers. That ST line they had before was really good. Only thing it really lacked, it was really straight. Just lacked a little bit of ball speed in comparison to some of these other drivers. The efficiency wasn't quite there. This year, hit it nail on the head. It is efficient. It's as quick as any other driver on the market. So if you're looking for a different option this year, definitely give it a try.
Yeah.
I think the look of it, me and Kevin were going nuts over it. I think it is
Yeah.
just the best looking driver on the market.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have any stupid lines on the back of it like that TaylorMade thing that I was looking at. So
that's right. You didn't like that.
I didn't like that. So yeah, really like it.
Okay, let's get into some questions here. We had a few submitted in the YouTube chat, a few really good ones too.
Mm-hmm.
We will start. This one was from Justin962. This is a really good question. I don't know if I've ever had this question come up or something like this in all of the fitting Q&A type of things we've done. It says, dynamic lie angle is at 63 degrees, but the club lie angle is at 58 degrees. From a fitting principle, would you want a club more upright to try and reduce that gap between the club lie angle and the dynamic lie angle, or would you make it flatter?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question, Justin. I think, yes, ideally, dynamic lie is basically what TrackMan is doing there. It is measuring how you're presenting the golf club at impact. So if your dynamic lie angle is at 63 degrees, which is usually standard for a 7-iron, depending on brand, I think Strixon and Mizuno are at 62, pretty much everywhere else is 63, then yes, we would try and match that up as best as possible. So yeah, the 58 degrees is probably a little bit too flat, but be careful, because if you have a left tendency, left tendency, that's what I was meant to say, and we make that club even more upright now, well, that ball's just going to promote a more left ball flight. So if you're having pretty good success with this and the ball's going relatively where you want it to go, then no need to change it. But yes, I would try and match those up as good as possible. In a fitting, if I'm seeing someone and they have a dynamic lie about 58 degrees, but the ball keeps but the ball keeps going left on them, I'm not going to make that club any more upright just because it matches up, because that's not going to help your performance.
Right.
So
I think there's also an aspect too, probably of looking at the impact location, and if you are a little toe side or a little heel side. But I mean, ultimately, if you're showing 63 at impact, you're probably doing a lot of things right.
Yeah. You're doing what you should do. So,
Here's one from C. Washburn 80 Golf, talking about Cobra. Well, actually more shaft related here as well, but plays the Cobra CBMB combo. He has Project X LZ 6.5 shafts. Says the swing has changed a lot since getting fit into them. Speed has increased quite a bit. Launch is a little too high and turns over too easy. Is there a shaft recommendation that would help with that?
Yeah, a few things. So your fit is not always your fit. As your body changes, your swing changes, your fit is always going to change. So just because you got fit for something 6 years ago doesn't mean it's the same thing 6 years later. Shafts that you would work with that. I think what we'd really look at straight away, something that is a little bit heavier. That LZ 6.5 is 125 grams. Maybe looking at like a KBS Tour 130, rifle 6.5 as well. So both of those are a little bit heavier. I'd look at more weight of shaft, try and figure out what's the correct weight. If your transition is pretty smooth, you might benefit from something being a little bit lighter so you can feel where that head is. Vice versa, if you are quick transition, you're pulling really hard from the top, that heavier shaft might make more sense. And then, looking at some lie angle stuff. So, I think the three you look at would probably be rifle, KBS Tour 130, and then maybe like an X100 Tour issue, something on those lines. Try those, and then if we're still not quite getting where we want to be, maybe it's maybe some lie angle stuff. But
I do think based on the comment and the question, it seems like part of the swing changes are maybe a quicker transition.
Yeah.
Just basically.
Yeah, if you're adding speed, usually you get a little bit quicker. Yeah, so it could be something just heavier, might make more sense.
Launching a little bit high, turning it ball over, right? So, all right, here's one from Andrew Rice, 4049. What does changing the weight in the GT2 driver affect? Spin rate, launch, impact location. I understand more weight forward usually means effect on lower spin, but curious with the GT2, and I think the context here to add with GT2 is there's kind of one fixed sort of position weight in the back of the club head. So and you can interchange the amount of weight in that slot, different grams, so to speak. So talk to me here, Harrison, about that one.
Yeah. Spin rate, launch, tick, tick. Yeah, it's going to change those. The heavier the weight put back there, the more it's going to launch, the more spin we're going to have because there's just more weight further back in the head. It's also going to make it a little bit more stable as well, so you should get a little bit more forgiveness on some of those off-center strikes. Impact location, not going to make too much difference there, but I know you kind of mentioned about lower spin being further forward, vice versa with the backside. We change that weight, we're going to make something a little more stable. We're going to make something that's going to spin more, launch more.
Yeah, I mean, essentially more weight towards the back or behind the golf ball is going to, add stability. It's going to make it probably higher launching, especially if it's low too.
Yeah, especially if you're someone who's like struggling with an overdraw. I won't use the H word. An overdraw of the golf ball, always going to struggle with that ball staying in the air with not enough spin. So that's when we're going to grab that GT2 and add a little bit more weight in the back there, bring that ball fly up, bring some spin up, all those kind of things.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there, but the center of gravity is the big piece being affected if you change the amount of weight in a certain spot there in the club head. So here's a couple here that we can dive into. Eddie DJ 13. Here's one. Will a 50X driver shaft be more flexible than a 60X, or is just a lighter shaft with the same flex?
Same flex, but different weight. So it is going to be as stiff, but the tip on that on the lighter one will feel a little bit more stiff. Just because the weight is dispersed differently in the shaft. But yeah, it should be about the same flex.
Okay. Yeah, so flex and the profile, how it reacts will be very similar.
Flex is all about how many layers of graphite are wrapped around. So the flex isn't really changing, it's just the weight is dispersed differently.
Okay, interesting. Okay. And then another question here. What are the effects of changing the back weight of a driver head? Sim 2 Max is the example here, so I imagine this person plays a Sim 2 Max driver, which is a little bit of an older driver, but nonetheless still a very good one. Yeah, from heavy to light or vice versa. So similar question what we just talked about with the GT2.
Yeah, basically the same thing with that GT2. You move that weight in the back, we're going to add a little more stability, we're going to add a bit more launch, spin, all those kind of things. I think from right, there's only one back way on that Sim 2 Max, so
I think so.
Basically, exactly the same answer as that GT2.
Yeah, I think, is there one question kind of follow up on that I just kind of thought, is there a point where if you add enough weight to that back point, then making sure the swing weight is optimized becomes a point of emphasis too, or is that kind of something you can just switch the weight and let it be?
No, you want to make sure the swing weight's right. So, but the more weight we're putting into that head, it's going to start to feel really heavy and a little bit sluggish. So you need to be careful how much you really do, because then we're gonna have to look at maybe switching the weight of the shaft and stuff too, and there's a few things that we need to look at.
Or the length.
Or the length. So we've got to do a few things, or even the grip as well. When we put one thing it's always to note when you're re-gripping your golf clubs, you put a mid-sized grip on your clubs instead of a standard length. Well, now it's going to be 2 swing weight points lighter. So that club that you loved felt amazing in your hands. And then you went, I'm going to try a mid-size. Now it's not your favorite club anymore because it's not the same club. It doesn't feel the same anymore. So if you put in a mid-size grip on your clubs, you might have to add a little bit of, you might have to put a tip weight in, or you might have to put some lead tape on that head. That's why you see a lot of tour players are using hot melt, or they got lead tape on the head, stuff like that. They're not doing it just because it looks cool. They're doing it for a reason.
Yeah, and that's all stuff, by the way, that if you have a change or an adjustment, something that you want added to your clubs, we can do that at Second Swing stores. We have build shops, state-of-the-art stuff in each of our locations. So if you have, you're trying to add mid-size grips this year versus standard size like he's referring to, you can also have the proper adjustments added in terms of weight to your clubs as well. We can do that.
I actually had a guy in last week who had a Cobra Dark Speed Max K, and he loved it, and he's fitting, brings it back. He came in for like a secondary fitting, and then he came across to me, and it was like, I've got fit for this, I want to make sure it's the right thing, which is what we do as well. We want to make sure you still loving what you got fit for. But the problem was he put a mid-size grip on there. So now felt slightly different to what he put. So I then just took one of the weights out and put two more grams in that head.
Okay.
Put it back in. Back to normal.
There we go.
It was easy
so
as that
it's the subtle things, but it can really throw things off. When that feels not quite right, then your confidence is shaken, and then it's kind of a snowball effect from there. But well, we appreciate everybody joining, dropping their questions in the YouTube chat. Once again, I'm reminding you that we are going to do this on Mondays at 9 a.m. Central. We're going to talk golf. We're going to talk, the event from the past weekend or events from the past weekend, and then we'll dive into some more fitting and equipment jargon as well. Of course, next week we have the Cognizant Classic being played down at PGA National, which is very close to our new store location, by the way. That is opening up later this year in West Palm Beach. So make sure you tune in next Monday at 9 a.m. As far as YouTube this week, we got a few fun things coming up. Later today at 1 p.m. Central, Ben Warian, pro golfer, former University of Minnesota gopher player, gets fit with Larry Bobka for a 7-wood. Big-time revelations in this video about what a 7-wood can do, even for a pro player like Ben. Also coming up this week, we have a G440K versus G440 Max head-to-head comparison that you, Harrison, filmed with Kevin.
Yep.
And then another fun one from the PGA Coaching Center in Frisco. Bennett Swavely, he was recently on the channel, got fit for a GT3. He puts that driver, the custom fit one, up against a driver he used in high school, Callaway XR16. That's kind of a fun head-to-head there. Yeah. He's very fast swing speed player, so that's a lot of ball speed in that video.
I've seen him break a Ventus Black over his back swing speed training. Really? Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So he's cruising at like mid 120s for club speed, which is very fast. So other things to take note of. You get a 10% trade-in bonus going through February when you trade in your clubs. Already have the highest values in the industry. You can add a 10% little bonus on top of that as you upgrade your stuff this year. And then now the Vokey SM11 wedges are in stock, so go get fit for those. Big year for Vokey with a new wedge line. They're going to help you with your game, help you get that short game control that you need. So lastly, Harrison, I think we just tell people to subscribe. Make sure you're tuning in Mondays at 9 a.m. If you're not able to tune in Mondays at 9 a.m., make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast platform you might be listening to. We appreciate everybody joining, and we are not able to do this if nobody's tuning in. So the fact that people tune in is a cool part of this whole thing. So we will see you all next week on the Second Swing Thoughts Podcast live.
At Second Swing, we know it's not you, it's your clubs. That's why we offer over 100,000 new and used golf clubs and a team of experts who help you find the perfect option for both your swing and your budget. Customize your bag with a tour-level fitting, then trade in your current clubs to save even more on your upgrades. Change your game in store or online at secondswing.com.